Overbond is a new fintech firm that wants to pull the bond market into the digital age. Online platform disrupting fixed income trading by offering more transparency and efficiency. The company also disclosed a whopping $7.5 million financing round. For more on this, we're joined by Overbond's chief executive, Magdelinic. Vuk, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is interesting stuff. We know that the bond market dwarfs the equity market, yet so few people understand it or even can partake in it, given the way that bonds are traded. So what does Overbond do to sort of start to open up the bond market?
Well, it is really a platform where all bond market participants can come together. So primarily issuers, dealers, and investors. We provide capabilities in a digital bond issuance manner.
And so that we're still talking about institutional investors right now. It's still big houses that can handle kind of a bond trading. What have you heard from them so far? Do they like the idea? Because they've been trading bonds the old-fashioned way for a very long time now.
Indeed. So all three stakeholders that I just mentioned, we're receiving quite positive feedback. So on a corporate issuer side, both dealer community and investors.
When you talk to them, what's the number one question? I mean, you bring this technology to them, and they must be intrigued, I imagine, but at the same time, they're used to doing things a certain way. What are the 1, 2, 3 questions they have for you right out of the gate?
Well, I think on the issuer side, I think secondary market liquidity is something that it's been brought to our attention as something that it's a concern. Also, the investor diversification is a concern. In the dealer community, we're seeing obviously a liquidity crunch and a kind of efficiency in the manual way the current process exists. So overall, I think we have modules that can provide some value for all stakeholders to partake and use.
You talk about efficiency, but there's a certain amount of the process, considering the orders being taken by hand by some, and opaqueness as well. So this could really, I guess, open it up and make everyone see who's taking part, exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so it would provide more transparency and price discovery prior to any deal launch. It would provide more channels for building relationships a long time before any deal is being contemplated. So on both fronts, with some data analytics, of course, I think this would be a fintech value that can achieve some of the objectives you mentioned.
Now, we were talking about how huge the bond market is, dwarfs equity trading. Why has it taken so long for people to sort of say, let's do this, let's take this approach, this fintech approach to bond trading?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We've seen it in other asset classes, kind of this digital wave go through and exercise itself to its full potential, equities, FX. We see that there's a combo of multiple factors. Predominantly, I think technology is much more advanced, both software engineering, encryption, and security that you can achieve quite quickly with platforms in a kind of a network at this day and age.
That round of financing you said $7.5 million. Clearly, there's interest and support for what you're up to. What about in terms of adoption, getting people signed up?
Yeah, so we're excited that the round of finance is actually kind of giving us a boost to execute the strategy and really work with all three stakeholders: issuer clients, dealer clients, and investors. And
when you get into an industry like the bond trading industry, and that it's set in its ways, anyone pushing back against you and just saying, you know what, we don't need this, thank you very much?
Well, I mean, it is something new, and that change doesn't have to be abrupt. We are a young company, and we feel that change obviously can be like an evolution. As opposed to a disruption of nature. So we see it as a slower process where clients can actually work with us and see where the exact benefits of the platform and using the platform are.
And when it comes to technology too, people always worry about security of their information. So what kind of safeguards can you build into a bond trading platform that would sort of give investors some comfort on that front?
Yeah, so we've taken the security question quite seriously. The technology is built on a bank grid security standards with all the infrastructure that you would see and expect in other fintech comparable companies such as payment system and so forth.
And now we're still talking about institutional investors. If the regular retail investor wants to get into the bond space right now, they can do it. And they either do it through a mutual fund, they do it through an ETF. Can you conceive of a time down the road where the average retail investor could use an app to actually trade bonds?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think alluding to the evolution I mentioned, it could go, obviously we're starting in an institutional size market, but to get to the retail and efficiency could be probably a layer down to maybe a mid-market. And then ultimately, I would agree with you, could be a more vibrant investor base, including retail investors.
It's a huge market to tap. It's fascinating stuff. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure to have you. That was Magdelinic, the CEO of Overbond.